Hello everyone, welcome back to Feldy, Farmer Yip's masterpiece map made for Farming Simulator 11. Let's get out to our vehicles. We are in the middle of hauling cattle. We'll keep this going. And that's probably all we're going to do at the moment. I think we are headed for... I look at the PDA, he's hardly even on the road. Skewed just a little bit, but yeah, he's almost there. Well, perhaps just hang on here while he's traveling so we can unload him and get him sent back to the farm. Something I want to go over in this this session here is something that we started in the previous session, namely looking at some of the additional scripts that this map happens to have in it. And maybe some of these are old hat, maybe some folks watching this know it already, but on the off chance there's someone who ever comes across this and wants to know how to set some of these up, or just what they look like in the map, or what things they can watch for that are additional ambiance, now at least they'll know kind of what's the cause or the root of them. And basically, I mean, you can have all these pretty objects and everything that you put into a map. Wait a minute, is there cattle on the roof of that thing? What the world? I've never noticed that up there. Interesting. Anyway, you can put all these wonderful objects in a map, but it's the scripts, it's the programming behind the whole thing that tells the game what to do with a particular object, if anything at all. Turn it on, turn it off, make a sound, move it from one place to another, so forth and so on. Sure enough, there is a couple cattle sticking up there on the roof. I hadn't noticed that before. Anyway, now that we're here, we'll swing around and back this puppy up. Listen to the choo-choo. Oh. Fat fingers. There's some cattle looking over the fence there. Back we go, and here we are. Everybody out. Alright, we'll look up our... Yeah, they're complaining. Market to cattle, here we go. Let me see real quick how much we have still of cattle. 9, we have 120, okay, we still have 13 loads left to go. So, we have a ways to go, in other words, 400,000. Oh, it's so nice having money in the bank, isn't it? Money may not be the answer to happiness, but it sure solves a lot of problems. Anyway, while it's on its way back, I want to show you some of what we looked at in the last session. And well, we'll see how this works. I'll be back in just a little bit in the editor. Alright, here we are, folks, back in the editor. And you'll notice that there is something highlighted basically all the way around. And it even looks cube-shaped down there, but that's kind of another story. What this is the main water plane. And where it comes from, just by way of refreshing our memory, is we looked at the map i3D file, which is also a type of an XML file. And we did a search for onCreate, and there's all these scripts that are in here that do stuff. And this one here actually is right up top, environment onCreate water. Well, so I wanted to show what that was. It's the main water table in here that I have highlighted, water plane. You can see here is the onCreate user attribute. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. And then here's the script. You know, the game is supposed to recognize this onCreate. and it tells it that there is a script here to run, and here is the name of the script. It's one of the giant scripts on create water. And I could show you the script. It's actually fairly simple in this particular case, but I won't bother doing that. Suffice it to say, this is the water plane. So if you ever want to make a map and want to know how to create the main water plane, well, this isn't going to teach you how to create the main water plane, but I mean, this is the engine or the workhorse behind the water plane that makes the ripples and all that, and makes you float, makes your tractors disappear when you drive into it, and that kind of thing. That's the active script. If you don't have that script on there, hey, this is a texture just like any other, and it will refuse to function the way that you think it should. So that's one of the scripts that we saw. And another one that we saw, here, let me just check these off. I wrote all of them down, of course, so I want to make sure I don't do any duplicates. The next one, kind of by order that Yip had in here, is these load places. And these are kind of curious. Let me just head over to one. It's in the water, so let's zoom out, and we find ourselves kind of on the hillside. We were kind of way over here, and now we're way over, I guess this would be on the west side of the map, kind of in the little bit southwest. But there are several load places in here. You can see kind of our placement thingy down there moving, and it goes kind of across the road. What this is it tells the game where to put things when you have a reset. And it's going to apparently jumble it all up down here. Now, I have done a reset in here before, and I thought that it ended up kind of on this side over here. So perhaps it was somehow moved. I really don't know. I don't know how relevant it is, or how often anybody ever does a reset. We got to admit, back here in Farm Sim 11, resets were incredibly painful because it took all of your equipment. It isn't like today where you can just do one particular bit of equipment at a time and reset it where you please. No, this took everything. So if you had something stuck, you were really screwed. You would be better off in many ways selling the thing that was stuck than you would be to reset it, because a reset takes everything and dumps it over here, and then forces you to have to redistribute it around the map, to all those places where you had it. I mean, shoot, I've even had instances where I get something stuck, and I will go in the save game file and change the literal coordinates of where it is on the map just to move it someplace else, rather than doing a reset, in this version. So this isn't even something that I would use, but if you need to, this is, again, we got the on create, and it's place end. It has see, there's the upper end, so it's all along this strip here, and it places items in here if there's a reset, to all these places in here, so it knows kind of where to put it. So, and ditto, if you go to the shop trigger, like if we, oh goodness, that's literally the trigger here on the building. That's for the player to step in there. If you want to buy something, well, most of the time in game, we press the P key to purchase something, but you could, if you were walking over here by the shop, stand in this trigger, which is set up to recognize the player, and you could then, through that, execute the shop, get into the store. And then the shop also has places when you buy things. If we come to this over here, base mission on create store spawn place, well, I think everybody has seen a time or two, if you've been watching these episodes, where I purchase something, And I believe what it does is it follows them in order. First, it attempts to put it over here if there's room. Here's one end. You can set the other end over here, so it will place it in between those 2 points. Or it will put it over on this side, and it will line it up between here and here. There's the end on that one. And these are the parts, you know, you look at this, it has the on create, and it gives you the starting point, but you also need to make sure you put in the end point, you know, where it's supposed to go on this end, or else you'll probably pop an error. But that's kind of what those were for. Just kind of looked those up and wanted to show everybody. Oh, and you know what? I went over the top of one. I missed one. Up here, the career starting point. Let me go find that. By the way, when I jump to a point, I'm hitting the F key in the editor. I think that takes you to the point. And I think we all recognize this. This is a main barnyard. Whenever we start the game, career start point, we end up right here in this spot listening to the fine baritone voice of Farmer Yip himself telling us, you know, to get off our duff and go out and do farming. That's just a single point, but again, it's connected with a script so that the game knows what this specific point is and why it's there. Now then, let me see here. I think we've done that. I'm crossing things off my list. We've done water. We've got these. Okay, now let's venture down a little bit. Aha, we get into sounds. There were a number of sounds. You know, if you click on Bird's Forest, just to take an example, daily sound on create. This was one of the scripts. There's a number of them. Bird's Farm. Actually, that one happens to be close by. It's right here. And, you know, probably in the editor, let me see. I know we can view sounds if we show the audio sources. The trouble is there are so many and they're all over the place. It is sometimes difficult to discern specifically which one is which. I mean, they go way up high. So this here, oh goodness. Yeah, I don't know how you would specify. This is the center basically. So if you are standing here, there is going to be a sound daily that plays. And it gives some parameters in here which are interesting. Start time 5, you know, which is probably 5 a.m. That's probably the hour. End time 20, that'll be 8 o'clock at night. So this would be birds during the day that you hear. After 8 o'clock, you're no longer going to hear them. And frankly, in that case, you're probably going to start to hear crickets. You know, if we take a look at Cricket's Forest here, well, that's end time. Yeah, here we flip-flopped, right? Bird's Farm, it was 20 was the end time. Now if we go to Crickets, those come out at 8 o'clock. So I know we notice these sounds, we hardly, you know, and they make sense to our ears because we know that's what happens in real life. There's a certain time of day. When you hear the crickets come out, there's a certain time of day, usually very early. 5 is probably late when it comes to birds, but there's a time when the birds come out, and you know, maybe there's some crossover and whatnot, but in here in game, these sounds, the purpose of them is to try to mimic, you know, what we would hear in real life. And there's code again behind this that tells the bird sound, or in this case cricket sound, how to, or how often to play in game. And I won't bore you with seeing that. Then there was one, now those are called daily sound. That's its own bit of a script. Then there was this one here that I found, which was random sound. We'll hit F and go down there. And lo and behold, it's kind of by the church. And I already know that the clock, you know, if you are within range, the clock itself, when it hits the hour, there is a chime, or there's supposed to be. And most of the time that we're in game, we're not down here anywhere close to the clock. You know, we'd have to literally be delivering something, you know, say over here to the brewery or kind of up here. Yeah, this is the Dosh plant, I think, up here. We still have to explore what that is. But you'd have to literally be in this area during, or when the hour changed in order to hear the chimes up here. Even rarer, probably still, would be to hear this chapel bell. And I don't know what the chapel bell is. It's just kind of hanging out here in the middle of nowhere. It's obviously another sound. So I went looking for it. You can, on this sound, let me see, does it tell you where? Yeah, here's the file name. So we go into the map here, Farming Simulator 11 mods, Feldy, sounds, church bell 02. All right, so we know the location. I think it's in here, church bell 02. Just for kicks and giggles, you can hear it. Okay, a single chime. I don't know how many times it would go. Oh, excuse me. I played 01. That's what we would hear with the clock. My apologies. Here's what we would hear of the chapel bell. Let's see. That almost sounds like a train. But anyway, apparently there's 3 dings. So randomly throughout the day, and there's some code over here, random sound. You know, there's timers and everything in here. I didn't dig into it too deep, but apparently at some point during the day, not that I've ever heard it, it will play the chapel bell. But I just say that to just point out there is another sound. It's random. It doesn't just play all day. It comes at certain times. Apparently gives some parameters. You know, I think they use this if they take like a random number in between here to try to determine when to play it. I think that's kind of how it works, but just another tool that's kind of hiding there in the map, if you will. I don't even know if Farmer Yip deliberately put it in here or if it came with the church. I don't know. You know, sometimes you can get like this church building here, which has the clock in it. You know, a lot of these map objects are passed around or extracted from one map, put onto another, and as long as you do it right and take all the scripts and all the pieces, it'll just work, you know, as soon as you dump it into your map. So I'm not sure the approach Farmer Yip took, whether it was deliberate or not. It's but suffice it to say, it's another item in here. Alright, that takes care of random sounds, and let's see, where was the other one? Oh yeah, the daily sounds, which are kind of all over the map. So let me scroll down a little bit further. I tried to note the places here in the scenery graph. Ah, this one was fun. This is in the lighthouse down here. You know, we just in-game sold some cattle over here. Yeah, there's the cows on the roof. That's funny. I have never noticed that till now. Interesting. Huh. You know, I suppose a business could have a cow like that up there. The trouble is, I don't know, this is just my opinion. The trouble with this is you have the exact same model cow up here that you also have down here in the pen, or so it appears to my eyes. Is that the same cow? So it appears, yeah. So, yeah, just a little bit confusing, you know, where you have supposed live cattle down here, and what are these up here? It's almost like 2 animals got up there and they're playing a prank. But anyway, I digress. We're over here at the lighthouse. That's kind of what we were intending here. Oh, let me go find it. Lost my place. All right, so this is on the lens. First, I want to point something out. You know, most of the time in game, I can't recall, maybe I'd have to go look at some old videos when we've been playing at night or dusk to see if we've been able to see the lighthouse beam. It's kind of a beam that you see come out from the lens up here, and it only comes out at night. So the first filter, the first script on this is the night light on create, which means this is only gonna show at night. At nighttime it's turned on, and during daytime it's turned off. That's the whole purpose of this night light script. And I think the Giants still have something, well, maybe they got something different now in 22. I know they kept it for a long time, you know, to where like in the village houses over here you could have windows, you know, that would be lit up at night, for example, but only at night, and during the day, you know, they'd be turned off. But anyway, that's the first thing. So that, because the actual light, you know, when we look down here, I think for the lens, is under this particular marker in the scenograph, this is going to be off when this is for it to be off, because it falls under it. I know I'm saying that horribly, but the reason I clicked on this one here is it's the one that has the lighthouse beam on create, just a special script to show it. And the reason we can't even see it at the moment is because in its natural state or daily state, it is off. So let's temporarily click the visibility, and here we see the beam itself. And when it's in game and at night, I think what the lighthouse beam does, this one turns it on off, this one here turns it. So what's going to happen, I think, is it's going to spin kind of in a circle, or maybe it goes clockwise. I don't even remember, but it's at some it's going to turn. And you know, we should be able to see it from a fair distance. You know, at least from the middle of the map on, it has a clip distance of 1,200 meters. So we should easily be able to see it even up here by the train bridge. The train bridge you can't even see at the moment because we've ran out of its clip distance area. But anyway, we'll turn that back off. That is the lighthouse beam. And again, it's just additional ambiance, you know, the good map makers, you know, will put on their map, you know, to see something moving. If you're the only thing in the map that ever moves or does something and everything else is static, you know, that just isn't real life. I think that's why they've tried so hard to have cars moving in the map, people walking, and all these other things to help, you know, suspend reality just a little bit longer so it feels more real. Or just looks better in game. So that is the night light and the lighthouse. Alright, next one that I was curious about is this one here. Debris crusher. Now we're kind of up in near the quarry. We're behind one of these gates. I believe silica is made up here, so you mine the rock, and this machine that you dump it into converts it to silica. But I kind of think, well, let me see here. You know, I am not 100% sure. Straw barn. Okay, here's the elevator. Creating kelp process. Somewhere, and maybe it's here if I click, there's the trigger. Here's the trigger that it comes to. You know, this is when we put in the silica and it turns, or excuse me, when we put in the rock and the biofuel, that goes in here, and then it turns into silica, which of course gets picked up over here. That's kind of what it's intended to do. However, I think there is another script embedded in this thing that is not used. And you can see in the on create here, debris crusher on create. Well, I did some study on this, and I'm sure all these things mean something, but I can't find it. Or at least I couldn't find it within the Farming Simulator scripts. Where I actually found it was in a totally different game. This here is the Giants Developer Network, which handles all of their games. And one of their games was a demolition company. You could topple buildings and run dozers and other equipment. And they appear to have had a debris crusher. So, let me see. Ground trigger, hold trigger, demolition. Oh yeah, debris crusher trigger up here. So there's some instructions here on doing it. I think it was for this game here. I don't have this game, don't really know how it works, but it makes sense if you're doing some demolition that you would want to get rid of all the debris, that you take off of a building or whatever. I mean, that makes sense, you would have it. Well, what I do know is some assets must have been and have been taken from this game, and they've been ported over to Farming Simulator. So as near as I can tell, that must be what was done, with this particular item. As you look at it here, I'm sorry, the lighting really isn't the best. This probably was taken from that other game and just brought straight in. The thing I was curious about is, okay, well, if you have, where is it here? On create. If you have a user attribute of on create, my understanding is the game looks for this script. And if it doesn't find it, it should pop an error. So what I'm wondering is if the Farming Simulator game somewhere in the code recognizes that this is for the other game and says don't use it here. I don't know. It's maybe something in the game engine itself. Maybe that's, I just don't know. The point is I think it's for another game. For whatever reason, it isn't popping an error in the log, but it isn't being used in here. It would be interesting to try it sometime in another map, without the trigger that comes in front of it here, which maybe circumvents anything that might be tried in this particular mod or whatever that is. Actually, I seem to recall, I know I've seen this unit before. I almost think someone turned it into a beet cutter so you could feed beets or something to your cattle. And of course they stripped all this out and they did whatever they wanted with it. A Ruben Schneider, I think that's what it was called, but that was in Farm Sim 15 as I recall. Anyway, that's enough on that one. That is the so-called debris crusher. I think it's basically a big nothing, if you will. Now, let's go to the next one that I found in here. Next type of script. It was down in the houses in the village. Let me zip down here. Alright, so the church and the clock is over here, so we kind of know where we're at in the village over here. That's the brewery. You look at these houses in here, there are several of them lined up, and it has this script on here. I had never heard of this before. Dual colored house. And, just taking it from the name, sometimes a lot of the Lua code is intended to be as intuitive as possible, just reading it so you can kind of know what it's doing. But dual colored to me says dual is two colors, so perhaps the script is modifying two colors, and as near as I can tell, what those two colors are is the roof and maybe the siding. So you see kind of how they look in here, and actually there's a couple houses here just behind me too. But I focused on these here, and you can see the colors of the roof. You can see kind of the color of the color of the home in here. It all looks the same. But what I noticed, and I had never noticed this before, You know, this is one of those just hiding in plain sight. It changes every time you load the game what this looks like. So let me show you a picture of what I mean so I don't have to turn the game on and off. I took several pictures when I was in game. This is another save that I kind of use for testing kind of things. You can see the darker homes here, the lighter roofs. And here's one save. Here's another one. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't out at the same angle. But you can see, well, these are still similar colored. Although this is a little redder here maybe. But these are definitely different over here. And it's all random. This one's different up here too. The roof is redder. Here's another one here. The roof over there is still red. Now these two are different. We got different colors going on here. And when I drive in close with a tractor and zoom in on the siding, I noticed the siding color was changing too. Now, I gotta say, maybe I'm just an unobservant male. I mean, this one was kind of lost on me. It's really cool that they have it, although I think I would prefer, this is again just my opinion, I think I would prefer that once the game loads for the first time, that it determines the colors then, and then leaves it constant throughout all your saves. You know, it doesn't really make sense that the houses would repaint themselves every time you come in here. I mean, that's kind of a cool effect, but you know what I mean. I mean, it's, but anyway, that's just my opinion. I thought that was interesting to see this one. I had no idea they had a code in here, and you can look up specifications of it. You know, there's an XML file that had all these different colors that they're putting on it. Color 1, color 2. I think one is for the siding, one is more for the roof. As near as I can tell, that's kind of what's going on with that. And the only other one that I kind of called up is not a Giants code. It's more a mod, if you will. And it's this one here that has, this is on create map fruit trigger. Well, this is the one that, oh, it's the one that's buried under the map. Well, yeah, that farmer accidentally left that in the map kind of to test. But it's the a trigger, for example, that we have like out here on the kelp bed. That's another fruit trigger out here. You know, to where the trailer drives around in it and it loads itself up with kelp. You know, the map, I don't think, or actually, yeah, it did have it. It was just a small one, kind of right here at the edge. I think intended for the front loader to also fill itself up with the ad. It's a modded type trigger. I don't think the Giants had one quite like it. So FMC created this one, and Farmer put it in the map so things could fill up. So that is, and I'm sorry, I used the whole time period here just talking about these other scripts, you know, that are in the map, which some aspiring mapper may want to take advantage of. There is so much to know with modding. It's just incredible, particularly with the maps. When you think of the thousands of moving parts, I mean, all these pieces in here that you see are moving parts. To put them all together to look decent, and then to have scripts in here that does things, you know, with various of them to get it all to function properly. You know, it's a wonder any map ever looks correct in the first place. But anyhow, we are out of time. Thanks for coming along to learn a little about map scripts. I know I sure did. You all have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.